Welcome to the Juan on Juan podcast with your host, Juan Ayala.
I'm recording already, so...
Oh, hello.
I'll introduce myself, and this is a swapcast, I guess. It's going to go on everybody's channels. I don't know what the fuck this is. I just got off a 3-hour podcast, so I've been drinking, and I'm high. So welcome. I'm Juan from the Juan on Juan podcast. You can find me anywhere at the Juan on Juan podcast. And who do I have the lovely pleasure to be speaking to today?
Oh, this is Andy Rouse from the Deep Share podcast, and you can find me as well everywhere at the Deep Share or the Deep Share podcast. And I too have done about 4 hours of podcasting already since 5 p.m. here on the East Coast. So I'm still rearing to go. This is the one I've been looking forward to the most. So hell yeah.
Dan?
Danny Naki Dan from Rising from the Ashes, and I just got off work an hour ago, so I have not been podcasting, so I'm fresh.
And then Dr. Narco Longo, the man of the hour. What's up, dude?
How's it going? Narco Longo.
What's up, man?
Great to meet you, man.
Old World Florida on YouTube.
The fucking celebrity, dude. This guy's gone viral. He is a disinfo agent, according to some. He's the Messiah, according to others. So it's a pleasure to have you. And today we're going to be talking about some Bock Saga, Saxer Saga, and our hidden history, right? Our occulted history. That's going to be way different than the mainstream stuff. So we're here, and I know Narco Longo wanted to say something for about 10 minutes because he had some information that hasn't been mentioned anywhere else. This is exclusive information straight from the source about some stuff that you said was groundbreaking that you say you're the only one with. What's up, bro?
Well, let's not make the stakes that high. How about you guys tell me when you heard about the saga first, and how'd you get into it?
Saxer Saga?
No. Yeah, the Bock Saga. Sorry.
I heard about it from Dan about a year and a half ago.
Dan.
Probably more now. And Dan's been talking about it for about 2 or longer, right?
Mm-hmm. When's your birthday, Dan?
What does that matter?
Because
just tell him,
Gemini.
Dan.
You're a Gemini? Okay.
Yeah.
I got into the Bock Saga probably 2.5 years ago, if I had to guess. And, I've been watching your guys' coverage of it a little, and I think you might even know more than I do about it. I would say I know more about the Saxer Saga. I coined the term Saxer Saga.
Ah, okay.
It was never referred to as that until I got in contact. I didn't know John then, but when I made the documentary, now I know him. And I just made another video today. It's going to have a little bit of this info in it.
Cool.
Especially one of these graphics that I've made. And I think I'll just have to share my screen a little bit.
You know how to do that, right? You've already shared your screen before with me.
Yeah, let's see.
So yeah, check out Old World Florida on YouTube. He's got a great fucking channel, and he just released the Saxer. He did an exclusive interview with John Saxer, and he put out a whole documentary. So I'm excited to watch that. And we have him here. Like I say, he's a local celebrity. He's about to start his own cult too, and he's already bought the compound. So
nice.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be podcasting from there too.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, you guys can see my screen?
No, you need to share it, and I need to
Nope.
put it up on the screen. You did it last
about-
time. Should be the little screen, this computer screen with the plus sign. You click that, and then it came up. It should come up, in the waiting room, and I'll bring it up on the screen. You see it?
Yeah, it's Chrome has lost permission to capture your screen.
Wow, bro. It's the lizard people. Can you send
They
it?
don't want it out there.
Restart Chrome.
If you start Chrome, you're going to have to come back in.
You can open 2 windows.
Of course.
So yeah, Saxer Saga has been really intriguing over the past couple weeks. I've been looking into some of this stuff because Dan and I did an episode, as some know, on this and the connections that we just saw at first glance with the Bock Saga. But now that we have you here, it's going to be interesting if we have more to connect it with. I mean, we're not ever trying to keep the saga as like the center of everything. We're just trying to use it and see where it goes and where it leads. And it seems to be going the distance. So maybe this other part of the story can fill in a lot of the holes.
And he said it was in the 80s, right? That he came up with it? The Bock Saga?
Yeah. Oh, yes. 84 I think so. I hear 2 dates from very prime sources that knew Eeyore Bok. I hear 84 and I hear 87. So I'm not sure if maybe he started to tell the story to like his very inner circle in Goa, and then it started to expand outward, and then he kind of made something out of it in 87. Maybe I'm still looking into it.
His mom died in 84, and so he got the instructions to go public with it in 84.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he had his first follower until 87.
Okay.
I think.
I mean, because I know he was like telling his friends that he already had first, which was Michelle Merle and a number of others.
Sorry, guys.
Oh, no worries, man.
You want to...
In worst case, you could send it to Juan or me or whatever, and Dan in the email. We could maybe figure it out.
Yeah, because I can bring it up. When are you going to come out with your saga, Narco Longo? When are you coming up with yours to share with your followers? I'll be like the first one in line.
Hang on, I'm too focused.
The fucking first follower ever, dude, of the narco native.
Juan, what's your number? Do you have an iPhone?
No, dude. I have an Android. I don't do iPhone.
Dude, that's gay.
Come on, dude. This guy who has a one of the biggest YouTube channels on YouTube, and he can't even share his screen.
Okay. I'm going to email you. Mm-hmm. What's your email again?
The Juan Podcast at gmail.com. And don't send me dick pics, or else I'll release Narco Longo's email and you can send him dick pics.
Okay, let's see if I can do this.
I believe in you, bro. Did you send it?
Yeah.
Wait, what state are you in, Andy? Are you on East Coast or West Coast, bro?
I'm East Coast.
What? I thought you were in Arizona for some reason.
No, man. Couldn't be further away. I'm in Massachusetts.
Oh, damn. I told this dude, I'm like, well, we're the East Coast versus the West Coast. We got to represent for Florida. And you're on the
coast. Hell yeah, man.
It's sent.
All right, dude. Let's see how good.
Yeah.
Where'd you get your PhD from, bro? Because
yeah, it's actually a doctorate in paleontology.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what you sent me here, bro. It better not be like nudes or something.
It might be. I don't know. It is the Bock Saga.
Oh, you sent me
Right?
some dicks, dude. All right, which one of them all do you want me to freaking open?
The one that does it for you.
Ooh, I like that approach.
The one that does it for
Dick
me.
does it for Juan.
I'll show
No,
you.
here I need to see him.
I'll show you the one that does it for me, bro. Right here. Hold on.
We can just go. You can just show me a picture, and I can.
Right there. That's the one that does it for me, right there.
Okay, so yeah, right there. So
Yeah,
these,
the cat fertility.
the cat. These were found in Marco Island, near Marco Island, on the southwest coast of Florida, so Gulf of Mexico. And basically, part of my theory, which is not covered in the Bock Saga, is that these Vikings, the Finnish people, the original Vikings, who do not have their own Norse mythology, they have a very small, strange oral mythology. It's not the same as the other Vikings. That's because they are the father of all the other Vikings, the Dan and the Sven line, you know. And this would be the original people from the North Pole. So they, the Finnish people, are the Phoenicians. This is what no one wants to admit. They're the only two people that could cross the open ocean in antiquity. And they were both, you know, had the long beards, Bok beards very often, and they had the wizard hats. So these guys had Viking boats, and every Viking boat had at least one cat. Now, the cats from the North Pole are sphinxes. Sorry, the lynxes. And the sphinx in Egypt is not a lion. It's not a lion. It is a bobcat.
Lynx.
It's a bobcat. It's a lynx. And the American bobcat is virtually identical to the lynx. And we have a shit ton of bobcats down here in Florida. Now that
up here too.
So bobcats very often will have those 7 toes too, which is kind of the equivalent of these. They're kind of like bobcats are like the Cro-Magnon of cats, if that makes sense.
Huh.
Every other cat in the world is domesticated or feral. The bobcat is the original royal cat from Eden, from the center of the earth, wherever, you know, the North Pole. And those were brought to Egypt, where you have the first domestication of cats. That's not actually true. It's actually Cyprus, where you have the first domestication of cats. And on Cyprus, 7,000 years ago, they have the domestication of cats. Well, that's because it was a Phoenician colony. Cyprus was.
Didn't they find? I just watched this fucking cat video on Netflix last night, and they found the burial of a human with a cat that goes back to, I think, around 8,000 BC to 10,000. I can't remember the actual date, but I remember they showed like the later dates after that.
It's at least 7,000, and Juan, that's in the photos that I sent you, that burial. So, no, that's the Florida bog people who line up precisely around there. Is there any way to look at just like a menu?
Yeah. Hold on.
View. Sorry, you're doing the best you can. I know.
So yeah, I watched this cat video last night, and it was actually pretty interesting about cats. And some of the stuff that they talked about was the domestication of cats, and I thought it was really interesting because most people don't think about. For a long time, it seems like dogs and cats were like, oh, whoa, where'd they come from? You know, everybody speculates, you know, dogs came from wolves and blah, blah, blah. But cats, nobody really kind of knew exactly where they came from. And I do believe that they said on there that they came from an African bobcat. It was a small, they said they haven't changed their look in over or their DNA hasn't changed in over like 1,000 years or more. And so they're almost identically the same as what they are now. And it's pretty interesting how they got domesticated. They showed pictures of them underneath the chairs in Egypt, and we're talking about how they were a sign of royalty, and they kept them in the houses. And they even speculated, which I thought was really fucking interesting and cool, that the reason why there was a black plague was because the church went around and killed off all the cats because they're associated with witches. And since there was no cats left around to kill all the mice and rats, there was a higher infestation from those animals, and it caused the plague to happen.
That's pretty wild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct for sure.
I think you and I covered that on a Deep Chill episode.
Mm-hmm.
Did we?
You brought that up before.
That's why there was a cat on every Viking ship going out of the North Pole.
Yeah.
They had these royal cats to prevent disease, to kill the pests, and in fact,
that's what they talked about. Yeah, they talked about they had them on a lot of the ships.
Most of the diseases that came from the old world to the new world that killed all the natives, supposedly, not that it happened exactly like that. They actually came from the livestock and the rats brought over from Europe, not the people. Because you didn't have, this is a conspiracy theory in itself. It's always like 50 Europeans show up to a nation of 2 million and kill 1 million of them with their diseases. But the 50 Europeans they're fine, right? They're okay. So it is because it's a livestock. They're bringing their livestock over. It wipes out their population. If it was the other way, if they brought alpacas back with them, which they may have, but not to the extent. You get the idea. So that cat right there, people say it's a cougar because it might have a long tail going up the spine of its back. You can't see its tail in that picture, but it's clearly some type of domesticated cat. Cougars don't act like that. Domesticated cats act like that. So basically that is evidence of, that alone is evidence of some type of importation of cats, introduction of cats to South Florida, way ahead of schedule, basically, whereas they weren't introduced at that point. And we know that because all of the Maya, the Aztec, all of those kingdoms had no domestic cats. They had a shit ton of jungle cats, but no domestic cats.
When was this found? Sorry.
It was found, I think, 200 years ago.
Oh, jeez.
150 years ago. Maybe, 1900. I'm not sure. Okay. But I think they date it to 2,000 years ago.
Of course. Yeah.
But anything they date down here in Florida is way off, even way off from how bad dating normally is. And so we could start with the Florida bog people. Yeah. The guy with the red hair. Okay. So we all know the Atlanteans, the descriptions of the sea people, the Atlanteans, the Phoenicians, they all had red hair or blondish hair. They had this Rh negative gene that preserves recessive genes, whereas positive blood and dominant genes override everything. And this is why orange hair has never gone extinct. They always tell us it's going to go extinct. Well, orange hair is most common in two people, the Irish and the Scottish and the Celtic in general, and the Jewish people, Ashkenazi Jewish people, and Vikings and just Nordic people in general as well. But basically, Rh negative blood goes hand in hand with orange hair, and these people that were some of the earliest inhabitants of Florida who had European or Eurasian, they don't like to call it European, but it's definitely Eurasian DNA. They looked like this. They're depicted as having strawberry blonde hair, and that pretty much only comes from the North Pole.
Hmm.
So these earliest inhabitants of Florida, the 7,000-year-old Windover Bog people and Manitowoc Key site bog people, that one was in the ocean. So you know that it's at least 7,000 years old because the Ice Age, the sea levels had to raise for that to be underwater today. So yeah, so that's some evidence right there that we had Vikings in Florida. And remember, everyone the church doesn't like is a Viking or a barbarian or a
Barbar, yeah.
Right. So right there you have European people
Devils.
right around the end of the last ice age here in Florida. And when the Europeans got here, the colonial Europeans got here in the 1600s, they even called the Timucua people and some of the people they saw between here and South Carolina, they called Picts. Like the Picts
Picts.
of the north.
Pictures.
And they
They're tattooed.
They were tattooed. They had blue tattoos. And here's a big kicker. The blue tattoo ink that so many of these ancients the Mayan used, it comes from one spot primarily. That's the west coast of Florida, which is the blood of the horseshoe crabs that are on the west coast of Florida. So that was a very valuable commodity that was getting transported out of Florida. The Maya were in Florida too, so we'll give them some credit.
Yeah,
Miami comes from Maya.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I mean, have you followed I don't know if it's solid or not, but the Amaruca idea that America, that's where the name came from instead of Vespucci.
Yeah, no. Amerigo Vespucci, I think Columbus was a real person. There's a lot of people that say he wasn't. And if he wasn't, that's okay. The story's still the same. Amerigo Vespucci was probably fake.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Now, America is more likely to come from, and more likely to come from Amurica, because it is Moors, the land of the Moors. It was Moorish people. These are the dark
Amaru
Amarus,
means shining serpent.
Right. So it's all three.
Yeah.
It
Amaruca, the Mayan, all of it. Yeah, it basically just ties it together.
The plumed serpent is Jupiter. Now, I said earlier that the dragon is Neptune. The sea serpent is Neptune.
Okay.
The thunderbird, the lightning bird, the plumed serpent is Jupiter. He's the eagle. So we were touching on the war of the eagle versus the serpent people.
Yeah.
And this is the two philosophies on how the controllers decide to steer humanity, where it's the being more transparent with the occult and pagan mysteries and sex and drugs and stuff like that, being more open with it. That's the Neptune side. Neptune is the god of
Tsenki.
The planet of the subconscious, the unconscious. These are the more symbolic minded rulers. And then you have the eagle cult, the eagle faction, and those are typically the war powers, like Nazi Germany, Rome.
So do you think the Maya were like a hybrid of both the eagle and the serpent cults? And that's why they're the plumed serpents, because they're like a combination of the eagle and the serpent.
I know that in Florida, they had a high reverence for Jupiter, because we have St. Petersburg, and Peter is Jupiter. So St. Petersburg is Jupiter. That's St. Peter. St. Peter is Jupiter in
Saint
the sky.
Father.
It's the first pope after Jesus, and Jesus is also Zeus. So it's Jupiter, Zeus, same guy. So Peter is Jupiter.
Marduk.
Then we have Jupiter, Florida. We also have Neptune, Florida, which is
Neptune Beach.
Neptune Beach, and there's also Venus, Florida, because Florida's ruled by Pisces. We went into that in the
Venus,
last
Florida,
podcast.
really?
Yeah, it's a gay town.
You would know,
It's
right?
like a right, yeah. I did my thesis.
You did it there?
I knew.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I've seen you on Grindr before.
No.
Oh, don't spread that fake
May
news,
not
bro.
be
His
implicating
enemies,
myself.
his enemies are looking for any dirt they can dig up on this man. This man is a wanted felon on YouTube. He puts out diss tracks, so check that out.
So let's take a look at another photo.
Yep. I wanted to bring up. Did you guys see the torso of an Irishman that they found recently? A bog body.
No.
I'm not sure if I can bring this up on
Florida?
No,
Is this going to be a meme?
no, it's not a meme. I promise you. Hold on. I'm trying to find the article though.
Also, the reason why I was asking is because that bogman that we looked at the picture of earlier had strawberry blonde hair, and that's kind of like a combination of the bright red and the blonde to get that color. So it seems like maybe it could have been like a hybrid of the two. And if they were related before, then there's probably no reason why they weren't interbreeding together anyways, even if they had different idealisms.
I think the Maya, a lot of time, just like you see in Egyptian hieroglyphics, you see black people, white people, and then red people who are the people that are the redskins of America. Redskin is not Native American. They're a little red, but they're not that red to be considered redskin. It's the Vikings who came out of the North Pole 10,000 years ago that had zero sun protection, zero resistance to the sun. So they needed to coat themselves in red ochre when they were especially coming down to Florida, where it was very hot. So, and we have red ochre burials in Florida too. And the bog burials are those you would expect to see in North Germany, Denmark area, and southern Scandinavia.
Bog.
So check this out. This is I thought this was recent, but it was in 2003. But I saw an article on my phone that was like, "Oh, look, recently found." But this guy stood 6'6".
Yes.
So they're really tall, and allegedly
Where did they find him?
This was on Croghan Hill, north of Daigini. It's somewhere over there in
Yeah.
Ireland.
So the Irish, like if who's that Irish fighter, the really tall one?
Conor McGregor?
No, he's not
No,
tall.
he's not
He's
tall.
not tall.
I have no fucking clue. I don't watch this monkey
Tyson
shit.
Fury.
Oh, Tyson Fury, yeah.
He's like, what, 6'10"?
He's
6'8"?
tall. Yeah.
Hey.
Okay, so the Irish, one segment of the Irish people that are descended from the Sven line are tall as shit. And the Vikings, the Sven line, are all super, super tall. The Dan line didn't get as much of those tall genetics.
Yeah,
the Dan line was more corrupted. If you know the Bock Saga, they're the war people. And the Sven line is more of the serpent people, the Neptunians, that are more interested in the occult rites and bringing them to the public and not hiding it all for themselves. So these are the Irish, the Welsh, the Scottish, the people that were subjugated by the Germans. I'm German and I'm Irish, so I don't have a bias against either. But
You're Mayan.
yeah. So to tie it back in, the Maya, I think they were dark skinned, to be honest, because of the way that their heads and faces are shaped. and you have the Olmec not very far, who are definitely like Polynesian people.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, that's
so
really weird that they literally look not from that area. They look very,
Yeah.
very Asian, right? Like friggin', it's wild.
yeah. So here,
Well,
sorry.
the Native Americans are from Asia.
Right. They are, most of the northern Native Americans are not Native Americans as far as if we go back very far. The Plains Indians and like the Native Americans we think of when we think of Indian on TV, like cowboys versus Indians, those natives are Mongolian hordes. Mongolian hordes. That's why they were they have Asian DNA. They did come across the Bering Strait, but they were literally like Genghis Khan type peoples. And I think the horse has always been in America. Just like I think the camel was always in Australia. Australia has the most camels in the world today.
Oh wow!
But they're
But
not native.
didn't they populate? Yeah, didn't they populate Australia with a bunch of crazy animals?
That's what they say. But I also
That sounds
think
like a psyop anyway.
I think that the trees are even, they lie about the trees here. So I think that they'd lie about anything. So let's look at another.
Which picture?
The Gulf Stream. That's another good connection to make. So in the Bock Saga, you have basically the whole theory basically hinges on the fact that there was this Gulf Stream that kept the Baltic Sea alive, the port of Helsinki or whatever they call it, the Gulf of Finland, the Gulf of Finland.
Gulf of Finland.
Yeah.
So the Gulf of Finland was kept warm, and it was thawed out through the Ice Age by this water that comes. Where does it come from? It comes from Florida. So basically, if I were those sea people and I was leaving the North Pole at the end of an ice age, where would I go? I would be following that warm water out, because that's basically probably the only route you could take at that point. If it was all ice, that warm water, you would follow that warm water like a highway to its source. And if you're freezing, and everyone wants to be in warm, comfortable weather, why would they just stop at Newfoundland? Why would they just stop in Pennsylvania? Because they have those rune stones in Pennsylvania and Ohio. The rune stones that have runes, ancient runes. They know it. It's not a conspiracy theory. So they wouldn't just stop. You would keep going as the weather got nicer and nicer. And that's what they did. They came down to South Florida and they established a pyramid building society. Now, the Florida mounds are older than most of the mounds in America. You also have the bog people that we were just talking about had the most sophisticated textile in all of the Americas for that time period, 7,000 years ago. They had textile that was thousands of years more advanced than the people they were living side by side with. So that tells you right there, someone made it from Europe to Florida, and I think it was part of this Bock Saga.
Well, it makes sense too. The Oak Island stuff, and the oak logs that were placed in there because the Vikings had a strong connection to oak in the mythology. And then even Nova Scotia, they talk about Templars being there, which I think the Templars were a part of the same line. And they were kind of like a rebellion that was kind of going under the guise, so they could retrieve some of the articles that were left in these temples.
Yes. Now, I want to touch on oak, because did you know that Florida, I'm not just some like narcissistic Florida maniac that always tries to tie everything back into Florida. But this is true. Florida has the oldest oak trees. Sorry, I shouldn't have said it like that. Florida has older oak trees than anywhere in Europe. Is that not insane?
Wow.
That blew my fucking mind when I first heard that. It was on one of your videos. I was like,
oak trees. And we have a ton of 2,000-year-old oak trees in Florida still. So,
yeah. I think this area right here on the map that's all dotted in red, where Cuba is and everything, and the peninsula there that connects to South America, I think that was all land at some point. And even Florida was a bit wider.
It was.
Maybe even that whole coastline came all the way up through where that yellow line is.
So if you watch the video I just posted today, the Saxer Stones, I interviewed two guys that were on the AquaQuest team that were diving, looking for Atlantis in the Bahamas with Edgar Casey's foundation. And
I noticed that too.
They found pyramids. This is no bullshit. No, I put video in there of them researching the pyramids. They found a 300-foot cliff that had man-made openings and switchbacks etched into it. I didn't have any pictures of it. They had to sign non-disclosure waivers and stuff. Whoa. But they found it. You know, it's all in there in the AquaQuest part of my documentary. But basically, the sites that they were finding burials and stuff like that. And then we have the Windover sites that I was just talking about. Sorry, not the Windover site. The same culture as the Windover site is the Manitoba Key site. And that's the burial that was out in the ocean. So I think it was like 700 yards off the ocean, off the beach. So you have at least that much of sea level rise. So, you know, someone was here.
It was an impact, I heard. Isn't there something about an impact taking out the Gulf of Mexico?
Some people say
Younger Dryas.
because the Gulf of Mexico is so shallow and it's so flat. There's no like crest in the middle. There's no extreme depth that people think that it has to be a meteor crater. I don't believe that. I think it's just probably terraformed because Florida there's only two flat places in the world, with the exception of the salt fields in wherever it is. I don't know, Bolivia, the salt flats.
Yeah, those things are crazy.
With the exception of that place, there's two completely flat places in the world, land masses. The Giza Plateau. Sorry.
Go ahead. Finish.
The Giza Plateau and Florida. So if you were building a garden, number one, that they had to level the entire Giza Plateau in order to build the pyramids on it. That's what's more impressive than the pyramids themselves, is that they leveled the entire plateau to have a perfectly level foundation. Now, Florida, I think, was terraformed the same way. Why does Florida have so many springs? It has the highest concentration of freshwater springs on the planet. That's because most springs come up out of the tops of mountains and come down. Florida has had its mountains sawed straight off. Therefore, you have like a limb, like a cut off limb that's just oozing, profusing blood like crazy. That's the spring water situation in Florida, where you have, I think it's freshly terraformed land, or maybe not freshly, but terraformed to the point where it's completely flat on purpose because they wanted to have a garden, basically. You know, you don't want to, I think Florida is a garden. It's kind of like it was a recreational zone. It was more of like where the royalty would have vacationed, just like they do today. And Saxer believes it to be the main port of Atlantis and where they exported all their produce from. So Florida also has some of the earliest corn harvesting or corn evidence of corn, and it's this one isolated town in central Florida. So that right there tells you a little bit that it might be to do with the Bock Saga, and the Bock Saga doesn't own this information. That it's the same story of the Aryan diffusions or the Atlantean people, the sea people that come from somewhere else and change society. So you have this Florida had some of the earliest agriculture in America too, and that's
Hey, Juan. So sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's all.
Hey, Juan, go back to that map real quick again, because you were talking earlier about those big stones that were found in Florida with a hole in them.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching an Atlantis video, the Disney one with Simcha Jacobovici, and they were talking about see the pillars of Hercules right there at Spain and Africa, and then there's another little tip that comes out right there. That place was called Donia, and they found a bunch of those same type of big rocks with holes in them like that, and they were using them for anchors for the boats. And so it's almost like the same exact stone. So when I saw Saxer Saga, I was like, oh, that looks just like those stones that they were talking about in that video. So I've been kind of following like Tribe of Dan and stuff around because I've been noticing Dan and Dawn and fucking everything. That's what kind of got me connected into the Bock Saga in the first place, was because when Dan came up in there, I was like, what the fuck? No way. Like, here we go again. And so Donia connects into that Tribe of Dan stuff. And then the whole left side of Spain in the Atlantic was all called Celtibaria, where all the Celts and barbarians went. And I think the Vikings even went to Greenland at some point. So going down to Nova Scotia area wasn't too far from like the tips of Greenland either. So it all seems pretty plausible to me.
Yeah, and we have a lot more convergence points that we're gonna be talking about. But you're absolutely right. You are. They were in Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia means New Scotland. So, Newfoundland. Newfoundland means, the land we just found.
Newfoundland.
And they had those runes in Pennsylvania and Ohio, rune stones. And could we look at another picture, Juan, please? So let's look at part of this whole thing is that what were they moving out to do? If you could click on like one of the pyramid ones, anyone. This is the Mississippi mound culture, right? Because in America, you're only allowed to call them mounds. If you utter the word pyramid in America, you're a laughing stock. It's ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
That is not inaccurate. That is completely what was going on in the Mississippi River area and the Ohio River Valley area. Now, to tie it back into the Phoenicians, the biggest evidence for the Phoenicians in America is the fact that all of the copper and tin mostly copper from the Ohio and Mississippi River areas is missing from the archaeological record. They don't have they know that there were these ancient copper mines. There was a ton of them, but all the copper is missing. They don't have all the copper artifacts. But many of those copper artifacts, this like very well done, well crafted crafted with finesse, and finesse is where Finnish is where the word finesse comes from. Finesse, just like to polish something is Polish, right? And there's a couple others, but this craftsmanship, and you have the Clovis head spear technology, bifacial tool technology in Florida very, very long ago. But this pyramid culture was almost identical in many ways to the Maya culture, as far as how they orientated their pyramids. They copied the same Maya layout, basically. And we also have mammiform tetrapod pottery in Florida, which only comes from the Maya, or mostly comes from the Maya. Mm-hmm. So the Maya were definitely contacted by these Atlantean, 12 tribes, the 10 tribes, the 10 brothers, whatever story you want to look at it from, that went out from the center of the earth and went to the capital cities of the ringlands. And I believe Florida, if not just the whole Caribbean area, to be one of these hubs where they went. And I think that it was a primary hub. I do believe, I agree with John Saxer that it was the belly button of the planet. If Helsinki's the head, then Florida is the belly button. That's what I believe. Mm-hmm. Because it had some of the tallest trees in the world. It has the most fresh spring water. It has the ability to grow tropical fruit and traditional agriculture, grains and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It's just a very unique place. And it seems very artificial. I love it. I love Florida, but it's very artificial. Even today, everything's landscaped, and it seems like it was always meant to be landscaped. It's just so hot and mucky that it seems like it's in a state of disrepair, rather than, I think it was like the Babylonian gardens where humans were very involved in the ecosystem here, where we were cleaning stuff up, we were irrigating, and we were monitoring everything, and we just don't know how to do that today. So what you're left with is a mosquito infested swamp, which it's not as bad as people think.
It's like when you don't clean out your pool, right, for a really long time, it turns green.
Exactly. It's stagnant.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a question about this picture because it looks like the sides of pyramids there, on the sides of them, they're actually growing crops or something, or it looks like some type of
like sod.
Yes, like the sod you get here in Florida, bro.
Yeah, Florida's the biggest producer of sod because it's so fertile. The ground is so fertile here. They don't know what it is because the soil quality is actually pretty low, but you can grow anything you want here. It does have very rich soil as well, but so it's like
a botanical garden, right? It's like what they did with the rainforest, right? It's like an out of control botanical garden. They're like, hey, nobody can ever live here. Nobody could ever live here. And they're tearing it down. They're coming across entire complexes. Oh, what did that mean? Oh, that there was people there? But you just said that nobody could ever survive there. So they're finding these, it's like an out of control botanical garden. It's wild.
Like you said, you quoted, I think you said it, that one of the first expeditioners went through Florida and said, humans can't live here. Like only God.
It's God's country. Yeah.
Only God can live here. Because it's so, but whatever.
Wild.
Let's move on. If you want to click
on.
I
wanted to say something about the navel too, because I kind of disagree with what you said, and somewhat, but not really. But the whole naval idea, there's like these naval civilizations all over the place. I think Petra is another naval place. When we talked to Michelle Merle, I asked him what Nephilim means because there's Nephilim and Nephilim. and he said Nephil means navel. So I think that maybe Nephilim is these different naval homes where they all went to. So you said that they're there for the gods. So possibly this is where the gods resided in these different naval homes in these different places all over the planet that were the center of these other ringlands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's kind of how I see.
You're right. You did mention in the Mediterranean, or right outside of the Mediterranean, they found some stone anchors. Now they find a lot of stone anchors in the Mediterranean, and they find some out in like the Polynesian Sea, Indonesia area. What makes Florida significant in that, what makes them distinct, is that their anchors are, until we see otherwise, are the largest and the oldest in the world. Now that would indicate that you had the most source, original, well-trained people that knew how to make boats that would be large enough to need anchors that big. So you also have the most canoes in the world here in Florida, and they find those, they pick those out all the time. So I think so much wonderful stuff happened in the Mediterranean, and I don't want to take away or claim any other country's significance, but I do think that as far as naval history, here on the west coast of Florida, you have the most ballast stones that large ships like that would have needed, and you have the most stone anchors, and they're the largest. Unless I see somewhere else, as far as John and I know, and we've looked really hard, they are the largest in the world. The one that you see one in the mountains of Ararat that is even remotely as big as the ones in Florida, and that one's about as large as a man. I think it's 8 feet tall, maybe it's only 6 feet tall. But we have ones in Florida that are 2 times that size. So the one down from Mount Ararat is definitely where one of these ark ships landed. Now, if there's only evidence of one ark ship of this size, of this magnitude in Mount Ararat, but we have John thinks about 400 ships, because you have 2,000 stone anchors that he's identified. That would be about 400 of these ships that are as big as that one ship that you have in Mount Ararat. So that seems to me like you have an entire fleet of those ships that you only get maybe one of in another country. That kind of indicates to me that ship in Turkey very probably, if it didn't come from the North Pole, which it probably did come from the North Pole, but Florida was the primary port, because Tampa exactly. Tampa is a natural harbor, and it has a external harbor. You have the east coast of Florida. In Plato's description of Atlantis, there's 2 things that really give it away as being Florida. You have I think he says 1,100 mile canal. I don't know if it's 1.1 something. I don't know if it's 11,000 miles long or 1.1 thousand. 1.1 thousand canal and seawall that surrounded the outward coast of Atlantis. Florida is the only landmass in the world that has a thin stripped seawall that goes all the way around it. That's the intercoastal of Florida. And the intercoastal used to be freshwater at one point. They added all these inlets, so now it's salty. It used to be much more fresh. So that is your inland river that surrounds the 11,000 miles of coastline, or 1.1 thousand miles of coastline. So that seems like Florida. And then Plato talks about the alternating zones of land and sea. Now that would be the east coast of Florida is the external harbor and the external bay, so to speak. The west coast of Florida is the inland sea. The surf is always much more calm there. It's like crystal. And this is the Crystal Sea that Plato said was on the inland Gulf of Atlantis. So, I don't want to pit my Atlantis against the Bock Saga's Atlantis. I think they are Atlantic, and that's all it was.
If I can just bring this idea up,
Sure.
I've been saying for a while now that at one point this phonetic idea of Atlantis, as in all land is ice, was probably true, but then that word, I mean, I see a big game of telephone as part of this situation in history. Not all of it is like controlled and hidden. It feels like this moved from a statement to the name of a place. Like this was at once this phonetic name, Atlantis, but eventually became Atlantis. So the Atlantis that we hear about from Solon, perhaps he is talking about the people of Florida or something like that. Long, long, long before that, we have this Atlantis, Does that jive?
Yes, I agree with you. And I've always said it's the duty of every group, culture, person, family to make a claim that they are the first, they are the original, they are the source. That's the first step to pride and, being proud of your lineage. And we should all be searching for those connections in our own culture, our own state. And so basically...
Sorry.
That's okay.
I had a question for you.
Sure.
Because the western side of America was known as Aztlan, and very similar to Atlantis. Why do you think that part of America was considered Atlantis also?
It was Atlantis. In my documentary...
So the whole continent?
The whole continent was the greater Atlantis Major, because it's the Atlantic landmass that only the Phoenicians and the Vikings knew it was here. The Greeks and Romans never left the Pillars of Hercules because they did not have the knowledge of the stars. The Phoenicians had the knowledge of the stars. Now, the Phoenicians are not the original people either. The Finnish people are. The Phoenicians are one of their colonies. And that's the colony that contended with the Greeks and the Romans, who are the Jupiterian races that worship Jupiter. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with Jupiter. He's the best planet. But the Phoenicians and the sea people, they revered Neptune and Poseidon because they didn't have any land power. The Scythians, who are the Scottish, the Scuti, they're also the Swedish, the Svenline, the Scythians, are the cavalry. They were the cavalry, and the Phoenicians were the navy. And these were some of the first people to smoke weed, by the way. They introduced weed to the ancient Americas, and they're the ones that brought cocaine and tobacco from South America to the mummies, who did smoke tobacco and did use cocaine. That's not a conspiracy theory.
Right.
You can look it up in your little MSNBC Fauci bot,
standardized
search engine, and there is cocaine and tobacco from the Americas in Egypt. So someone went across. It was probably the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians became the Moors, and we have all this Moorish history in Florida too. So the Phoenicians were here too. It may have just been the Phoenicians, but somebody had a shit ton of boats lined up on the west coast of Florida that all dropped their anchors in groups, in clumps of 10, 20, sometimes 100, all in a small little area. They're all in my documentary, not all of them, but the ones that we could see. And, I always think to myself, or say to myself, the truth is where they don't let you talk about it. It's the stuff you're not allowed to look about. It's the stuff they don't give any recognition to, and they don't talk about anything in reference to these Florida anchors. They're given zero attention. There's a couple plaques on some of them when you go up to them, but there's no mainstream information whatsoever. So that tells me they're very hush-hush about this, and I think I know why.
What do they call them? Do they call them anything in particular?
Yeah, they call them Indian rocks.
That's it.
Because the Indians had a reverence for these stones, especially the one that has the Adam and Eve face on it that John first saw, that got him started on this journey. Basically, they have a Atlas, and Atlas is Atlantis. He's the godfather of Atlantis. And they have an Atlas and a Hesperus, or an Adam and an Eve. Adam comes from Atlas. Adam was punished with the Adam's apple shoved down his throat by God. God, he fucked up, and God took the apple and shoved it down Adam's throat. So then we have Adam's apple. Well, Atlas is man. Adam is just man. Atlas is just man. God put the world on man's shoulders. So man, as a gender, has to bear the weight of the world on his shoulders. Women bear the weight of the world in their hips. The feminine, that's where girls have their power in their hip power. But that's why Atlas was cursed to hold the world on his shoulders. If you look at men, they're top heavy. They're shoulder guys. You look at women, they're bottom heavy. So I don't know why I was talking about that, but
I like the connections.
So let's look at another one of those. I think we should get into the actual Bok connections. If you could just
like Bok Tower.
Yeah, could you just click on the Bok Tower, that one, Juan, please?
And Juan, you said you've gone there, right?
Mm-hmm. We've both been there.
Yeah,
that's great.
We should go together, bro.
We're gonna go there soon and film something there.
Nice.
But basically, that is mostly marble. It's mostly marble, pink marble. There's a little bit of limestone too, but it's mostly marble, and granite, I think, is the gray. I could be wrong. So that is not Tartarian. Sorry to disappoint people. That's kind of why I haven't covered it so much yet. I do think that was built in 1925 to 29, whenever he built it. And because there's pictures of it being built, they're not the normal fake construction photos. I think it was built, but there was a tower there before that we have no information about, and it was made of stone blocks. So
and how have you gotten there?
I have a picture of that. I didn't prepare it for this.
Okay.
For this meeting, I don't have a picture of that. But it's
like a depiction of a previous stone
them,
structure.
It's them ripping down the old stone.
Oh.
I think it was just like a water tower or something.
Sure.
That's what they'll say it was. But it's the highest point in peninsular Florida. And I think at the time he thought it was the highest point in Florida. He was told it was the highest point in Florida, so he bought it and built. I think it's actually the second highest point in Florida now. I could be wrong.
And who was he? Who did this?
Yes, sorry. Excuse me.
Oh, no worries.
So Edward Bok with a K. B-O-K. He is Dutch. Now, I know in my gut they're related because I know how families work, and to be that close back then, they are related, and they're also related to the Bach, like Johann Sebastian Bach with a CH. And we
Yeah.
know,
Mm.
We were wondering that as well.
yes, they have some of that royal blood in them too. Bach was a genius. His kids were all geniuses, and they have finesse. If you have some of this old Finnish blood, the elven blood,
Yeah.
this is where Finnish. I don't know if you guys watched my Hell on Earth, my own.
No, I can't
Mm.
wait.
So
If it's about this stuff.
it's my first video that did really well was actually about the Bock Saga.
Oh, great!
And
Wow, it's funny too because like I have scoured the internet. I mean, and maybe you're just that shadow banned or something.
I don't know.
Disinfo, not shadow based.
But the Bock Saga, basically, I forget why I was bringing that up, but
Sorry,
no, it's okay. So here we have the Bok Tower. It is huge. It's unlike anything else in Florida. This was built for a purpose. This was not just some retired guy that wanted to build a cute little garden for his friends and community. That's what we're told. Edward Bok is considered one of the most influential men. Yeah, thank you. That's a good picture to rest on for a little. So that's the tower from afar. And he basically set out to build a Garden of Eden. And he tried to design his garden like the Garden of Eden. He had a tower. I don't think there was a tower in Eden, but he built that tower. And that little picture you see right there, that hammered etching into metal, I think it's copper or bronze, I don't know. But that picture is basically Eden. That is, he has all of the images of Genesis, the scenes of Genesis, printed onto the tower. So he's either obsessed with the Garden of Eden or he's trying to tell people it's the Garden of Eden. And this is only 60 miles from Tampa Bay. So you could drive there in an hour from where John is talking about a lot of his stuff going on with the Garden of Eden. Then you have E.E. Calloway, the Christian pastor and writer, or I think it said he's a lawyer. He wrote a book about Bristol, Florida, near Tallahassee being the Garden of Eden, because it's where Noah built his ark. So you have all the ark stones in Florida, which are definitely anchors of ancient giant stones. Some people say they're balloon anchors, like moor stones to moor, because if you're mooring something, you're anchoring it. That it's a mooring stone for airships. That's not a bad theory, but I think they were underwater. There's a lot of evidence of them being underwater. So you have the most ark stones, ark anchors, and then you have the gopher wood that only grows in this one area of Florida on the west coast. That was almost definitely the wood that Noah built the ark out of. And that was the basis for this other guy's story. Saxer has nothing to do with that guy. His own independent research, his own findings, and had no knowledge of that guy until I asked him about E.E. Calloway. He didn't know. Or he saw it in the video I made. But blah, blah, blah. So you have two different people arriving at the same. I don't think I've ever heard of someone saying Pennsylvania is the Garden of Eden, or I don't think I've ever heard someone say Virginia is the Garden of Eden, or
right.
But basically,
Jackson, Missouri.
Really?
Oh, really?
Right.
That's a weird one. I've never heard.
I want to point out the guy that did this engraving, Samuel Yellen. He was an American master blacksmith and metal designer, and he went to this right here. I saw.
Oh, nice.
Yellen received awards from Art Institute of Chicago, the American Institute of Architects, the Architectural League of New York, and the Bock Civic Award from the city of Philadelphia.
Oh, wow.
1925, the Bock Civic Award. and obviously he did these are all his works, and he did the Bock Singing Tower in Lake Wales, and he did a whole bunch of other stuff. But he's a interesting cat.
Buck.
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at, and I think you said it, Andy, earlier, like Bock Saga.
Yeah.
Like the bog people.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good connection to.
Yeah, it could be
Bock
phonetic.
Saga. Everything's phonetics. Everything's.
It's weird. Yeah, and you can ask, like you've been saying, like you can go on your MSNBC or whatever and look up, real etymologists, and they'll tell you the same, that it comes from phonetics first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'll get into some more etymology at the end if you remind me. But Bok Tower right here. Basically, it has Eden on it. Yeah, that's my whole thing. Florida's the Garden of Eden. You don't really have to believe that or not. But what is very important, can you go to the one that shows the picture of... Can you scroll down a little? I think there's more than that.
That's all I got, dude.
That's all you got?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shit. Okay, let me send you one.
It's probably there's two without.
Yeah, something
those two
here.
didn't work.
Okay, yeah, they were in my iCloud, so they didn't pop over to you.
Oh, let me see here. No.
But yeah, interesting bog because it's like swampy or watery area. And berg or borg, borg is like castle, and berg is like something that sticks up, or like a burr, like a thorn on a rose. A
spur.
Yeah.
Right.
Good so that's connection. Why like St. Petersburg is like something that sticks up from the ground.
Right. There are no bergs, so why is there a berg in Florida? Because berg can mean mountain. It can also mean like city. It can also just be a stone. So it might be a symbolic stone. But here, I'm going to send you.
And this is, what material is this door? This door is wild.
It looks gold.
Looks like gold, yeah.
It's called bronze rapace. Rapace.
Whoa,
how do you say that? I forget. But I'm here.
Juan, take some super close-up photos when you go there again, man.
Yeah. I'm about to like jump on the little.
One of those.
I'm gonna jump over the moat and go into the little island because the tower itself is all like there's a moat around it, so you can't.
Oh no, shit! You can't really see that.
You can't. Yeah, so you can't see it in the pictures, but look at this: is water's a moat, and it's a koi pond, so I'd have to literally jump. I mean, I'll take the risk. I'll jump on. Take a few close-up pictures and then just get kicked out.
Just ride a koi fish.
So they don't let you get up to the tower? You can't go inside of that or anything?
The only reason I have that, illustration is because I have the book that was written by Edward Bok. We sell it in the store. So I took that picture right there.
Could the tower be? Well, no, because this is Eden.
Look at the moat.
I mean, I was kind of wondering if maybe I've often wondered if a lot of these kind of things poking out of the ground, these constructions are somehow reminiscent of that magnetic mountain idea in the north with like Hyperborea.
It is. This would be.
It's phallic a lot of times too, but I don't know. It's double meaning.
So you're right. Helsinki is the center. I've always agreed with that. Although I always will agree with that. Helsinki, Hell, was the center point, the North Pole.
Right. And all the other ringlands were to pay homage to the Allfather's land, right? Or something like that.
Yes.
That's according to Bock Saga as well.
So I think Florida probably would have been one of the first ringlands, capital cities that they checked in on very, very, very early on after the Ice Age. And that's what it looks like, because the burials, they always date the agriculture, the burials, and the domesticated animals, all to that 10 and 7,000 years ago timeline.
So The connection from this Florida area to Helsinki would almost make more sense talking about the first period in the Bock Saga as Paradiset, like paradise time, where all these ringlands were totally connected and all that. Not physically, not geographically, but seafaring. Everyone was together under this one system. After the Ice Age, it's interesting because of how long this process would have taken to reestablish everything. And maybe to what you're saying, I don't know that the Bock Saga talks about Helsinki thriving again. Do they thrive again after the Ice Age? I don't remember that, Dan. Do you?
Well, I don't know if it. Sorry.
Well, I was thinking that maybe, if not, then maybe Florida or this area, this more southern, away from the ice area, as far south as they could get, was maybe their next, prime spot, Allfather area. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But Dan, do you remember, like, after everything, after the Ice Age ended, did they return there and use it as Udenma once again?
I think it was established again after that, but it wasn't for a long period of time.
Yeah. So in the meantime,
I do recall, I think that they said that they did let some people were able to go outside of the wall, but it was very few.
Yeah,
they had between. Like you had to get permission to leave from the ice wall.
They had
they were able to go out before the ice wall came down.
Okay.
But
go ahead.
Yeah. They had 2 breakaway. Those are like the Dan and the Sven, the 2 breakaway who didn't want to sit around during the Atlantis period. Because the 10 brothers went out and established the 10 tropical kingdoms. But then you had the leftovers, and these weren't the same people before the flood. So I think they were expecting this hierarchy to like hold up forever.
Right.
I don't think they understand, and I'm not trying to like patronize them, but I don't think they understood the astrological ages, if that makes sense. Eeyore Bock and his family. Would probably be a good time to talk about that. Eeyore Bock and his family, I believe, originate from the age of Capricorn. So we're in the age of Aquarius now. The next age, 2,000 years from now, is going to be Capricorn. So that would mean Bock family, if I had to guess, a lot of these events they're describing was 22,000 years ago. Now, you can throw that timeline right out the window. It doesn't really matter. but basically, Eeyore Bock means goat, right? Bock means goat in Dutch and Swedish, the root, Finnish. And the Bocks, I forgot what I was saying.
About the goat symbolism? He represents the goat.
Right,
Capricorn.
So Eeyore Bock, I believe that the royal families of antiquity had a crest, an animal, right? Like a family animal, family like Game of Thrones, the stag family, the dragon family. So, and we know this to be true. You had your coat of arms, your family's coat of arms, and it usually had an animal on it. So the animals, you used to, and my evidence for this is that in the Bock Saga, he talks about how all the boys were born on the spring equinox, how they would plan the births so that all the boys would be born at the same time. And learning astrology before that, I heard Santos Bonacci say 5 years ago that the ancient Babylonians and the Sumerian armies and stuff would have their men born in Aries to be the best fighters, the best soldiers. And their archers were Sagittariuses, and so on. And the women would be born in May to be the most fertile. Now, when you look at Eeyore Bok, we know that he was born out of compulsion, where it was like, he needs to get born right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the guy basically had sex with his daughter in order to make that happen. It was the only choice. Now, Eeyore Bok is a Capricorn. His father, Knut Victor Bokstrom, was also a Capricorn. So, that tells me right there, that family bears their children in the sign of Capricorn. If you know your astrology, Capricorn is the timekeeper, because Capricorn, the goat, is ruled by Saturn. Saturn is the god of time, chronos, chronology. So they are the timekeepers at the center of the earth who keep all the history alive, and they had all the timelines. If you go to South America, who is the Saturnian race, because there's 5 planets, 2 luminaries, that gives you 7 planets, but the 5 planets, right? Because the sun and the moon don't count. Those 5 planets produced the 10 tropical races. You have 2 African races, you have 2 Asian races, you have 2 American races, right? So those planetary correspondences are there. And when he talks about the Dan and the Sven, if you know your astrology, the eagle people, the Jupiter people, and the dragon serpent people, who are the Neptunians, the Poseidons, the people that worship the subconscious, the unconscious mind. And they tend to forego military strength and kind of just dolly and just dilly-dolly and just play around in the gardens and take drugs.
The high priests. Kind of,
yeah. It could have, right, you're right. It could have been 2 different castes that got pitted against each other when it's supposed to be like this. It got turned like that, maybe. So now you have St. Patrick kicking out the serpents,
all the snakes,
from Ireland, and that is the story of the Dan line, because Patrick is my middle name's Patrick. Narco Patrick Longo, and Patrick is the Irish Peter. Potterick, like Harry Potter with his lightning bolt on his third eye chakra for Thursday, who is Thor's day.
Wow.
So that's the Thor chakra, the third eye. And that is Jupiter's chakra. So good kings wear their crowns across their foreheads. The bad kings wear it on their crown chakra because they're submitting to Saturn. They're snuffing their crown chakra, like a yarmulke, a zucchetto is the Catholic version. This is zucchetto, the Catholic yarmulke. You submit to Saturn when you snuff your crown chakra, basically. Blah, blah, blah. So back to the Capricorns. You had emblematic animals of each family. And the Bok family was undoubtedly the goat. Eeyore, Capricorn, his father was a Capricorn. If Eeyore would have a son, he would have had his son be a Capricorn as well. And I can't find a date for Victor, Knut Victor's father. But if I had to guess, he was a Capricorn as well, because it said right there in the saga, thousands of years ago, they made sure everyone was born at the same time. So that tells me that they would still have the means to do that, the willpower to do that today.
Well, and they also had astrology.
Exactly.
That's part of it as well already. This is pretty impressive. Yeah.
Now in Florida, you have some of the oldest. That's the burial that Dan mentioned of the cat next to the human.
Mm-hmm.
I think they say it's 7,000 years old. They say that
Mhm.
is where that's the earliest evidence of the domestication of the cat. And okay, there we go. Let's look at that.
Wow.
Back to the topic. I made this graphic off of a picture out of the Bock book. It's, I think, the last illustration. And this is going to show you, so it's fitting that we're doing this towards the end. This is the nail in the coffin, where Bock might not have been the same exact Bock family, but he certainly arrived at a lot of the same conclusions as Eeyore Bock. And this ties more so into the Saxer Saga, but you'll see how they're related. Now, Bok Tower claims to be Eden. He says his garden was like the Garden of Eden, right? Now, if you could, do you have the capability to zoom on these guys? If you could start top right in the photo, let's just go clockwise from top right. So in the description, he says how he put in the old cities, the cities of old. Now, what's interesting is that there's no St. Augustine in this picture, which is the oldest city in America. So there's no St. Augustine. There's no Tampa. There's no Miami. But there's Charleston, South Carolina, Palm Beach, Florida, and then Tallahassee, Florida, which, as I said before, was right next to Bristol, which is where Noah got the wood for his ark. And most of these giant old ark ships were being made from that wood. That is right next to the Apalachicola River. So that's the apple of Eden, the Apalachicola. That's where you get the Appalachies. That's a native word. We're told that's a native word. But if you know your phonetics, you know that is the same word as apple or Apollo. Yeah, either way, it's still significant.
And Appa in Bock Saga means basically the wise man, like the grandfather, I believe.
Yeah, you're right. Now, if we go down to the right, please. There's Palm Beach. For some reason, Palm Beach is not that old at all. It's only like 120 years old.
I'm sorry, I misspoke there. I just realized it in my head. I'm thinking Oko and Akka.
Yeah.
So
Is Appa the big bison, flying bison from Avatar?
I don't know.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Apu.
But
Apu.
Appa is also
yeah.
something.
No, it's Appa.
Is it Appa or Apu?
It's Appa. Apu is from the Simpsons.
I'm gonna fact check. That's right. He's the fucking Indian guy. I'm an idiot.
Anyway.
So if we look at the dragon right there, you see, I have it labeled for the video that I made, and Saxer talks about there being a dragon in Eden, and the dragon would be this serpent, or in Florida we have alligators, and there's these depictions of ancient giant alligators, blah blah blah. It could very well be a dragon, or the basis for a dragon. Imagine if you lived in the North Pole, you came over to Florida for a short amount of time, and you saw those things, and then you had to go back to Finland or whatever, and you only had that one experience to base this animal off of.
I'm sure they were big back then, bro.
They were huge. I have a picture of like 10 Indians going up against one alligator. It was crazy. But so that's why it's labeled dragon. That's not very relevant to what we're talking about. But then hidden on the compass of the map, you have this fleur de lis. Now the fleur de lis is the symbol, the emblem of the Merovingian dynasty. Now the Merovingian were French mostly, but they're Frankish because France comes from the Franks, who were German, but the French embraced their Roman heritage more so than their Nordic heritage. So that's why the French are not so Germanic. They're more Roman. But the Merovingians were also Germans, Goths, Alans, and the Goths are the Gotha, like Gothenburg, Sweden, which is Goth, whatever. What's the name? That it's
Gotland.
one of them. Gotland. Thank you.
Gotland, yeah.
Gotland is one of these Atlantises, if I'm not mistaken. Was
In Bock Saga, yeah.
They had a little colony in Gotland, and that was one of the Atlantises. And even in the Bock Saga, I think there's 3 Atlantises. You have the first leaving of the ice, where they stopped in. Let me look at my world map. They stopped in like Iceland or Newfoundland, or one of those Arctic islands. And then they stopped in one of those Swedish islands, and then they stopped in the British Isles. So the third Atlantis in the Bock Saga is the British Isles, where the Phoenicians did go. So there you go right there. The northern extent of the Phoenician Empire was Britain. The southern extent of the Viking Empire was Britain. They went down to Rome too, at some point and all that stuff, but England.
Wow.
So the fleur-de-lis is basically all of the fleur-de-lis is going to be more tied into the Dan line, the tribe of Dan. Now, that's because these are the people that made it all the way to Mesopotamia and Israel, and then back again. So those are the like the Alans, and the Alans are the Aryans, because you switch the L and the R. Alien is Aryan. So Alan, and there you go. That's the big secret that I like to say.
And you just touched on something Go ahead, Dan.
Well, I was going to say in Louisiana, when they do the Mardi Gras, they have a Bacchus festival and do a King Bacchus.
Yeah. Bacchus is depicted as having, I don't think he's a goat, but he has 2 goats in front of him. I think that Zeus has that too, but Zeus is not the goat, so don't get those. But let's look at the flirt. Sorry.
I was just going to throw in you touched on this whole switching the R and the L, the alien versus Aryan. And that's a thread that I've often come to, is that, a lot of these stories of aliens are all about these Nordic peoples, all the shiny ones and everything. We've talked about it many times, Dan and I. And I've been kind of digging, into a lot of the Irish and Scottish mythos and stuff like that about the Tuatha De Danann and all these fairy tales and talking about fair folk. And I can't help but think that it's all phonetic there. We're talking about white people. Right. We're talking about the Caucasians.
And Caucasian is just the one group of white people that got stuck in Turkey after the last ice age. Armenia, Turkey area. So that's where Caucasian comes from. But the alien Aryan, to me, that is the most important key to the whole conspiracy truth realm.
Yeah.
I used to be so caught up in the whole alien thing.
Me too. Oh yeah.
John is a big believer in aliens, and I love John, and I agree with everything he says. I think we just have a different set of terminology, vocabulary to describe the same events. I'm an astrologer, so I always defer to the astrology.
Yeah.
Well, John, he was one of the original ancient alien people. He knew Zechariah Sitchin personally back in like
Oh, wow.
the 80s and 70s, and he knew Eric von Donigan. He actually debated Eric von Donigan at one of the first
Whoa.
ancient alien conferences. He was debating a panel of three other people on whether or not there was a capstone to the pyramid. So
Interesting.
he was arguing in favor of a capstone, and I think the other people were arguing against there ever being a capstone. Blah, blah, blah. His mother was part of the Ancient Astronaut Society.
Well, that's interesting because, I mean, we even in the conspiracy-minded community have, Admiral Richard Byrd's quote-unquote journal that I believe his entire family denies is even in existence. But it plays into that, especially if it's fake, it plays into this idea that for whatever reason, they're handing us a story about Aryans underground that were super tall, that had white hair, blonde hair, and were it's this inner earth thing, center of the earth. It's
exactly
very interesting that that story is handed to us, and every conspiracy person and TV show owned by networks is talking about that story. So it's very weird.
Yes, like you said, you hit the nail on the head with like a golden platter. Like, hey, Nazis and aliens right here. Primetime History Channel, primetime
Right.
Discovery Channel. It's the most viewed thing on their channel. It's the thing that they push the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
So Ancient Alien is definitely a psyop.
Right.
I've always said you can take the word Ancient Alien and swap the R, and congratulations, you now have the most censored word on the planet. Whereas aliens is going to be the next COVID.
Absolutely.
They're preparing us for the aliens, but alien is Aryan, and all these ancient sites were created by Aryans, not because it's the German Nazi party. It's because the Japanese are Aryan. The Persians are Aryan. So the cradle of civilization, Persia. Japan, who had some of the most refined ancient culture, and they have the Ainu, who founded their upper class, and the Ainu of Japan are the Anunnaki.
Yeah.
And the Anunnaki are the reptiles. They're the samurai. The why they're depicted as lizards sometimes is because you had primitive people encountering people that probably had full suits of armor. So they would call them dragons or lizards or stuff like that. So you have the samurai of Japan, and then you have the Sarmatians of Poland.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys wore armor, and they were a sword warrior class, a warrior society.
Mm-hmm.
And they are the same as the samurai.
Wow. And
basically, at the end of World War I, or maybe it was a Russian Civil War or Sino-Russian War, I don't know. At the end of one of these wars, they had a Polish saberman, a Sarmatian, go one-on-one with a samurai.
One-on-one
with a samurai. And the Polish guy won and killed the samurai in a single swoop. So it's the same culture. You had the Sarmatians, and they were like the Hun, these Eurasian steppe travelers. That was the cavalry of the Finnish or Phoenician navy. And the Phoenician or the Venetian or the Von. The Von are people like Finland is Vinland.
Yeah.
And Venice and Sven is the Von, the Venice people, the Phoenicians. They're the sea power people who have the sea power, and they're supposed to be a mercantile class. What happened in in ancient times is the mercantile class usurped the spiritual class and the warrior class. They made a deal with the warrior class to usurp the spiritual class. So they've stolen the spiritual caste, which is supposed to be the tip of the pyramid. They've stolen it, and now the mercantile class is holding the spiritual class hostage. So they've turned religion into a commodity. And they exported that the same way they export their little cookies and toy action figures. They put them on boats and ship them around the world. They do the same thing with religion today. So religion got usurped by the mercantile caste. There should be 7 castes or 5 castes. And the third one stole the first one's place. And that's part of why we're so screwed up today. And that's my take on the whole what's wrong with the world is that you had these 10 tropical kingdoms. And in the Bock Saga, they say it's Krishna in India that turned on the whole program and switched sides and started screwing everything up and had the first ego trip, right? As they say. So I think it was in Babylon that you had these 10 families go out from the North Pole or out from Atlantis, out from Florida maybe. I think they went from the North Pole, but they stopped in Florida because it was a major seaport. It's a natural seaport. And basically from there, they established contact with the 10 ancient kingdoms, the Maya, the Aztec, the Inca, the Dogon tribe, the Japanese, They established contact. And then the one tribe, the one group that made it to Babylon, they got to Babylon. They saw how degraded and how awful the common people were, how much work it was going to take to reintegrate agriculture and astrology and all that stuff. And they just said, fuck it. We kind of like this, where we know everything. We have all the food. We have all the language. We have all the mathematics. We have the technology. They kind of liked it like that. And this would have been the first, kind of like the invention of lying, where they went back on the program.
Right.
Started refusing their offerings, and they switched to the black magic.
Right.
This is why you get civilization coming out of Mesopotamia, which we know it didn't.
Right.
We know it didn't come from Mesopotamia. You have Indian history that is way older than that. You have Nordic history, like runes etched on stones that are way older than that. But yeah, that's why you get Babylon. Babylon is the archetypal bad place. And it's where the languages, I think, got mixed up as they started. You had, and Tolkien knew all this.
Dude, yeah. As soon as he translated Finnish grammar, that's when he wrote his first Elven language.
Exactly. Because he knows Finnish or Phoenician, and actually English. This is why Bok told his story in 3 languages.
Yes.
The root, the Finnish, and English. And actually, Finnish was the least important of the 3. Because
it was the Vonner language, wasn't I believe so.
The Finnish, the modern Finnish, is very Asian influenced. It loses a lot of the European nuance because they were taken over by the Hun, and the Hun came through and split the northern Yurgic people from the southern Yurgic language families. That's Hungarian. Okay, so there's another thing. Why does it tie back into Florida? Juan knows this. I talk very sideways.
That's fine. This is great.
We're just kind of brushing all of these topics, and that's okay.
Just to keep it, unfortunately, like I can't go too much longer, but I mean, by all means, you guys could keep going if I had to go.
Right. Let me get there was one more connection I wanted to make, other than the fleur de lis being right there. That's the Merovingian dynasty. Bock is using his signature, his Merovingian signature, because Bock was Merovingian. He's descended from those groups. I know he's descended from them. Did you know that Edward Bock is considered one of the most influential men in American history?
That's so bizarre. I've never heard his name before.
And why is that? It's because he edited a woman's journal, the most popular woman's like home journal. So it's like more people have read his writing than, like Mark Twain or some crazy shit like that. So, but here's a crazy connection. He was writing for the home journal, but he had all these occult circles and he knew all this stuff about, Eden and astrology. He has the 12 signs of astrology etched onto his tower in a sundial.
Along with Genesis, that's perfect.
Yeah. So the sundial not only tells the hour, but it tells the zodiac sign of the month. So here's another good connection. Oh fuck. So Che Guevara, when he was taking over Cuba, started a woman's home advice radio show. It was like the most popular radio show in Cuba. Okay, what was it actually? It was a method of disseminating codes and instructions, communist like instructions to the guerrillas that were in the cities that were hiding from people. So Che Guevara literally was like a radio host talking, or his friends were. I don't know how much he was on it himself, but he started this radio show that was like advice for women. That was what it was called. And it would be if like BuzzFeed is giving out like North Korean like Manchurian candidate codes like through their woman's advice. So I think Bock was doing something like that, where his woman's home journal.
Oh shit!
We should get a hold of that.
He was literally teaching women about like feng shui and like take your shoes off before you go inside and stuff.
Yeah,
I think it was all kind of like you have Edward Leeds Scalman writing his books about the Coral Castle. Well, one of them is like advice. It's called A Book in Every Home, and it's an advice book, just like little random bits of advice. People have spent hundreds of hours poring over that and are positive it's a code manual. Cool. So and he built the Coral Castle. Well, Edward Bock built the Bok Tower for no reason, literally no reason whatsoever. And apparently all he did was he was the editor of some newspapers and magazines and stuff like that. I think he was a bit more interesting of a character than that. Now, the last connection I have, I really hope I sent you.
He was an alchemist. Which picture?
Do you see a picture about Lake Worth? So here's the final connection.
Which one? Lake Worth. Oh no, it's Lake Wales.
Oh gosh. Okay, hang on. It's in my screenshots.
Just email it to me. But this is really fucking fascinating, dude.
The last connection, which I can tell you offhand, but I want to show you proof. I don't want you to just take it from me. Is the fact that here we go. Okay, email incoming, Juan.
Oh, dude, you've read about this guy? I was literally reading a freaking book today, and then we're talking about this dude. The Dragon King.
Oh, who, the Merovingian guy?
No,
Von Drakenberg.
Von Drakenberg, yeah, he was friends with Tracy Twyman.
He's a Merovingian.
Yeah. And the dude was like poor.
It wasn't that one. But that guy explains about how the Merovingian line goes back to a lot of the biblical characters. But I think you should have just gotten the last one I sent.
Yeah, I did. I'm gonna download it.
And
real
then
quick.
that's all the material I have, basically. Other than I see there's a Bock. We have a Bock school that was made by these German Bock billionaire family, but it's B-A-K.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but the phonetics don't lie.
they have a school of the arts here in South Florida.
So we're looking at Florida's Finnish community.
So that's what I really wanted to show you. That's the kicker. That's the nail in the coffin. Is that much as John Saxer believes the Greek come to the west coast of Florida to return to their spawning ground, which they used to live in before the flood, because Tarpon Springs, very strange, Tarpon Springs has the most Greek people outside of Greece,
Right.
and it's the Greek capital of America. So they have the most Greek people and the highest percentage of Greek. You get the idea. It's the most Greek city in America. Now, Lake Worth, the city that I'm in as we speak, Lake Worth, Florida, it is Palm Beach. Palm Beach is separated from the mainland by Lake Worth. So Lake Worth is the lake that separates Palm Beach from West Palm Beach. I'm in Lake Worth right now. Lake Worth is, as it says right there, the Finnish capital of the world outside of Finland.
Whoa.
So the Finnish people, after World War II, came here by the thousands. And at one point in time, it had the most Finnish people in the world outside of Finland. And so today, I think it's somewhere in Europe has like the most Finns outside of Finland, but still Lake Worth has the most Finnish. It's the most Finnish city in America. And it says right there, another one that I had that I didn't send you.
Boca Raton.
That's where I was born, is Boca Raton.
Bock.
Saying Bock.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Raton.
Yeah. Wow. I never thought about those, but
I mean, you never know. It may be that's the problem with symbolism and etymology. It's like it could be, but it may be off.
Mm-hmm. So that Lake Worth, Lantana, and Lantana, I believe, comes from Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
The Lantana was a tribe, I believe, a Lantana tribe down here. But yeah, there you go. So the Finnish people have probably been here before, in my opinion, and returned to this point, like salmon returning to their spawning ground subconsciously. The Finnish people came here to kind of check out their colony, see where their ancestors were, and they don't even know it. And we also have a lot of Hungarian people here, and Hungarians are the closest people to the Finnish linguistically. And the only reason they're separated today is Finland's up here, Hungary's down here. The Hun came through and chopped their culture in half, pretty much.
Right.
So the owner of the store that my brother and I run right now, he was Hungarian. He's still alive. He's Hungarian. And he moved here down to South Florida too. So it's not just the Finnish people. He moved to Lake Worth too. And if you walk down Lake Worth, there's Finnish stores, Finnish this, Finnish that. So
wow, that's
there
incredible. This has really tied a lot of things together, I would say.
I looked up
this story.
I looked up Boca Raton. It says the city's name comes from Boca de Ratones, a Spanish term meaning rat's mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that appeared on early maps and referred to hidden sharp points and rocks that knot or fretted ships' cables.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well,
yeah. So you're right. Yeah, that we were taught that growing up in school. It's actually if you know Spanish, it's actually the mouth of the mouse. Because raton means mouse, and the word for rat is different, if I'm not mistaken.
Rata. Yeah.
Rata. So it's the mouth of the
Rata.
mouse. Yeah.
Interesting. Dr. Narco
I wonder
Longo.
what the mouse.
And
Come
one-
on, is
one
the
more
mouse
thing.
a constellation or anything?
No, but the craziest thing about Florida, if I had to say it in 10 seconds, is the whole state is ruled by the sign of Pisces. Pisces is ruled by 3 planets, Jupiter, Neptune, and Venus. You would have to be astrologer. You'd have to be an astrologer to know. Florida has 3 cities named after planets, Jupiter, Neptune, and Venus. So the ancient people back then knew it because they made all of their temple and mound and pyramid arrangements. They plotted them to the constellation Pisces. Pisces comes from Poseidon because Pisces is the fish. It's the sea serpent, the whale, the sea monster. They're the last sign of the zodiac. Aries is the first. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But
Dr.
This
Narco
was
Longo
great, man.
strikes again.
one more thing.
Excellent.
So, narco, I'm a nar, right? I like to
Narwhal.
think, that I'm holding up my end of being a nar, like the narrators
Narrator.
in
What's
the old
the
so.
Longo, bro? What's so long? Is that a dick joke when you did that? Narco Longo?
We are talking Bock Saga.
No, that was my government, my shill. They gave me a name of shill names to choose from, and I chose
cool.
Narco Longo.
You fucking disinfo agent. Well, there you go. Ladies and
Hey,
gentlemen.
Juan, I heard your other episode with what's her name, Carla, and
Carla, yeah.
Slick Dissident, and there's a lot of connections there to this too. The 10 kingdoms and the three crowns that has to do with the 3 northern
3 Caucasian races.
ones, and then the 10 tropical kingdoms,
Interesting.
or the Moorish kingdoms.
This
This is
episode
nuts, man.
109.
We're broadening this. We're like ripping open lost and stolen history now, rather than just peeking through the curtains. It feels like
Yeah, you're not a peeping Tom
maybe
anymore.
I'm being too poetic about it, but that's what it feels like.
Well, you can find me at the Hold On Podcast, and you guys can plug your
You
stuff.
can find me at the Deep Share on all the socials. Hit me up, contact at thedeepshare.com. It was really nice to meet you, man.
Rising from the ashes.
Rising from the ashes.
Check it out.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It was nice meeting you too. You too as well.
Y'all have each other's info. You guys can hit each other up, and we gotta do this again.
Yeah, it should be fun to pick each other's brains more.
Thanks,
sure,
Juan.
man.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, thank you, Juan. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Juan.
I'll send all of you the file. So appreciate
Please
you.
do.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Take care, everybody.